The 17th century was a celebrated period in French drama, which included the work of Jean-Baptiste Moliere. It was comparable to the Elizabethan age in England, which had Marlowe, Ben Jonson, and Shakespeare. It was a time in France when the theater matured, with professional touring companies and public theaters, even though the actor's lifestyle was condemned by the clergy. Moliere contributed to the new social order by writing what's called comedies of manners. These plays dealt with the social conventions of gentlemen and gentlewomen in a sophisticated age, the slavish imitation of contemporary fashion by the middle class also became a handy target for comedy and satire. Moliere used the full resources of French theater to expose the gap between the ideal and the real by creating comedies that poked fun at hypocrisy, greed, affectation, zealotry, and most of all, immoderation. Despite the pervasive influence of the Catholic Church on 17th century France, Moliere's plays were not concerned with the religious implications of imperfection, but rather the social consequences of immoderation and poor taste, when individuals failed to comply with the ideals of fairness, reasonableness, and common sense. This insistence on moderation and reason is best summed up by Cléante, a character in Moliere's most famous play, Tartuffe. Cléante says, "Man's a strangely fashioned creature who seldom is content to follow nature, but recklessly pursues his inclination beyond the narrow bounds of moderation, and often by transgressing reason's laws perverts a lofty aim or noble cause." Growing up, Moliere was in line to inherit his father's position as the king's upholsterer and enjoy a comfortable life. He received a fine education at a Jesuit college and practiced law for a short time. In 1643, he drastically changed careers by becoming one of 9 founders of an acting company in Paris. Taking the stage name of Moliere for the first time, he devoted the rest of his life to theater, writing, directing, staging, and producing plays. Although theater was popular with the general public, the acting profession itself was condemned by the clergy. In fact, an actor was automatically excommunicated by the church and denied Christian burial unless a renunciation of his chosen career was forthcoming before death. Moliere's new company was a total failure, at least financially. Twice the playwright ended up in jail for debts. As a result, he retreated to the countryside, where he learned the organizational nuts and bolts of successful theater by touring the back roads and provinces of France. In 1658, Moliere returned to Paris, found favor with the court through Louis XIV's brother, and had an indisputable hit with a play called The Highbrow Young Ladies in 1659. From then on, he enjoyed huge success and the patronage of the king. Moliere weathered the uncertainties of live theater and the maintenance of an acting company by writing a large number of plays. One of his editors, René Bray, estimates that in a 14-year period between 1660 and 1673, Moliere wrote 31 plays. In all, his company performed 93 of Moliere's plays. Of these plays, the one most anthologized today is his famous play Tartuffe. The first version of Tartuffe, the first 3 acts, was performed on May 12, 1664. The Archbishop of Paris, Queen Mother Anne of Austria, and the Company of the Blessed Sacrament protested the play to King Louis XIV. The play was banned and Moliere was censured. The extreme religious climate of the times is reflected by Pierre Roulet, vicar of St. Barthélemy, who wrote that Moliere was a, quote, demon in flesh, and should be burned at the stake as a foretaste of the fires of hell, end quote. The play was rewritten and performed on August 5, 1667. The President of Parliament brought in the police, and the play was stopped. The Archbishop of Paris denounced this version from the pulpit and threatened spectators with excommunication. Although Moliere petitioned Louis XIV for relief, the king had to steer politically between the religious zealots and Moliere and his sympathizers. The third version of the play, the version we have today, was finally produced in 1669. The attack on religious hypocrisy ruffled the feathers of both clergy and laity. In defending his play, Moliere attributed the censorship to the very hypocrites he was satirizing. In the play's first printed edition, Moliere wrote this: "This is a comedy about which a great deal of fuss has been made, and it has long been persecuted. The people it makes fun of have certainly shown that they command more influence in France than any of those I have been concerned with before. Noblemen, pretentious women, cuckolds, and doctors have all submitted to being put on the stage and pretended to be as amused as everyone else at the way I portrayed them. But the hypocrites would not stand for a joke." In 1673, while performing the title role in The Hypochondriac, Moliere fell to the stage in a bloody, coughing fit. He died a few hours later. Priests were not allowed to bring the last rites to him, so Moliere did not have the opportunity to renounce his profession. He was denied a Christian burial until his widow and friends persuaded the king to intervene with the archbishop. Only then was one of France's greatest playwrights buried, after dark, in the St. Joseph Cemetery on February 21st. One can only wonder how Moliere would have staged such a convoluted scenario. Moliere understood the potential role of theater in the transformation of society. In the preface to Tartuffe, he explains why he chose religious hypocrisy for ridicule in that play, and why the instrument of satire is so effective. He wrote, "If the function of comedy is to correct men's vices, I do not see why any should be exempt. Such a condition in our society would be much more dangerous than the thing itself. And we have seen that the theater is admirably suited to provide correction. The most forceful lines of a serious moral statement are usually less powerful than those of satire, and nothing will reform most men better than the depiction of their faults. It is a vigorous blow to vices to expose them to public laughter."